Judge Catherine Morrison reviews the file before her, then looks up at the couple standing on opposite sides of her courtroom. The tension between them is palpable, the distance more than just physical. Mr. Cameron Wells, you've brought your wife of 7 years to this courtroom because you believe she was unfaithful during your deployment to Afghanistan. You state that while you were serving overseas, defending our country, she was entertaining other men back home. And now you question whether you are the biological father of your youngest son, 2-year-old Jacob. Is that correct? Yes, Your Honor, that's correct. I spent 14 months in combat zones, and the whole time I thought my family was safe at home, waiting for me. Turns out the only thing waiting for me was a bunch of lies. Mrs. Vanessa Wells, you admit that you struggled during your husband's deployment. You say the loneliness was overwhelming, the financial pressure was crushing, and you made choices you regret. But you maintain that Jacob is absolutely your husband's son. Is that your testimony? Your Honor, I never said I was perfect. I never said I handled everything the right way. But Cameron acts like he's the only one who sacrificed anything. I was here alone with 2 babies, trying to keep everything together while he was gone. He has no idea what that was like. Let's start from the beginning. Mr. Wells, when did you first suspect something was wrong? I was stationed at Forward Operating Base Salerno in eastern Afghanistan. We were running daily patrols, dealing with IED threats constantly. It was July, middle of the deployment, brutally hot. One night, I finally got a chance to call home via satellite phone. We only got about 20 minutes of talk time, and the connection was terrible, kept cutting in and out. What happened during that call? Vanessa seemed distant, distracted. I could hear music in the background. Voices. I asked her where she was, and she got defensive immediately. Said she was at her sister's house having a girls' night. But something felt off. The way she was talking, short answers, wanting to get off the phone quickly. Cameron, you're being paranoid. I was exhausted. I had been up since 5 in the morning with the kids. Sophia was teething, and Tyler had just started preschool. Do you know how hard it is to comfort a crying baby while you're worried sick that your husband might not come home? I understand that deployment is incredibly difficult for families left behind, Mrs. Wells. But Mr. Wells, you said this phone call made you suspicious. What happened next? About 3 weeks later, one of the guys in my unit, Specialist Rodriguez, he pulled me aside after formation. He looked uncomfortable, kept fidgeting. Finally, he told me his cousin lives in our neighborhood back home, and she'd seen Vanessa out at restaurants, at the mall, with some guy. Not once, but multiple times over several weeks. I was allowed to have friends, Cameron. You didn't own me just because you were deployed. There's having friends. And then there's what you were doing. Rodriguez's cousin said you were holding hands with this guy, sitting real close in restaurant booths. She said one time she saw you 2 coming out of a movie theater, and he had his arm around you. The accusation hangs in the air. Vanessa looks away, her jaw tight. Mrs. Wells, is this true? Were you seeing someone else during your husband's deployment? Your Honor, I was lonely. I was scared every single day that I'd get that knock on the door, that someone would tell me Cameron was dead. I was drowning in bills because military pay doesn't go as far as people think, especially when you're trying to maintain a household alone. I needed someone to talk to. So you were seeing someone? There was a man I became friendly with. His name was Derek. We met at the Children's Museum. He had a daughter around Tyler's age. We started talking, and it felt good to talk to another adult who understood what it was like having young kids. Judge Morrison leans forward, her expression serious. Friendly is one thing, Mrs. Wells. But Mr. Wells is describing behavior that sounds like dating. It wasn't like that at first. It started innocent. Coffee while the kids played, conversations in the parking lot. But yes, eventually it became more than friendship. I'm not going to lie about that. Cameron's face hardens, his fists clenching and unclenching at his sides. More than friendship. That's one way to put it. You were having an affair while I was dodging bullets and wondering if I'd ever see my family again. You have no idea what I was going through. You were the hero over there, everyone supporting you, thanking you for your service. I was the forgotten one, the one nobody cared about, struggling alone with 2 toddlers and wondering if I was about to become a widow at 26 years old. So your answer to that fear was to cheat on me? To betray our marriage vows? I specifically joined the military to provide for our family, to give us stability and benefits. And you thanked me by sleeping with some random guy you met at a museum? It wasn't random. Derek understood what I was going through. He listened to me. He was there when I needed someone. Judge Morrison raises her hand for silence. Let me ask you something, Mrs. Wells. During this time period when you were involved with Derek, were you also still intimate with your husband when he came home on leave? Cameron came home on a 2-week R&R leave in September. That was about 8 months into his deployment. And during those 2 weeks, were you intimate? Vanessa hesitates, glancing at her husband before answering. Yes, Your Honor, we were. And were you also still involved with Derek during this time? I had told Derek that Cameron was coming home, that we needed to stop seeing each other. But after Cameron went back to Afghanistan, I was even more lonely than before. Those 2 weeks reminded me of what I was missing. So, yes, Derek and I started seeing each other again after Cameron left. Mr. Wells, when did you find out the extent of your wife's relationship with this man? I didn't get the full truth until I came home for good in December. My unit returned just before Christmas. We flew into Fort Campbell in Tennessee, then bused to Fort Riley in Kansas, where we were stationed. There was a big homecoming ceremony. Families everywhere with signs and balloons, kids running to their dads. Cameron's voice cracks slightly, and he pauses to compose himself. I came off that bus looking for my family. Tyler was only 3 then, but I knew he'd recognize me. We'd done video calls when we could, and Sophia was almost 1. I was so excited to hold her, to see how much she'd grown. But when I came down those steps, I couldn't find them anywhere. Oh, this is ridiculous. I was there, Cameron. I was absolutely there. You were 40 minutes late, Vanessa. 40 minutes. The ceremony was over. Other families were already leaving. I stood there in my uniform duffel bag at my feet, watching everyone else reunite while I waited alone. The kids were having a meltdown in the car. Tyler spilled juice all over himself, and I had to go back home to change his clothes. I got there as fast as I could. My command had sent out detailed information weeks in advance. Date, time, location, everything. You knew exactly when and where to be. But you weren't there because you were dealing with something that could have been handled by giving our son a towel and some wet wipes. Judge Morrison interjects, her tone measured but firm. Mrs. Wells, why were you really late to your husband's homecoming? Vanessa's face flushes, and she looks down at her hands. I was saying goodbye to Derek. I had told him that once Cameron came home, it was over for real this time. He wanted to see me one more time before that happened. We met for coffee that morning, and it went longer than I planned. The courtroom falls silent, except for the quiet hum of the air conditioning. Cameron turns away, his jaw working as he fights to control his emotions. You missed welcoming me home from war because you were with your boyfriend. Unbelievable. I'm sorry, Cameron. I know that doesn't mean much now, but I am truly sorry. Sorry doesn't change what happened. Sorry doesn't give me back those moments. Sorry doesn't erase the fact that I came home to a wife who'd been sleeping with another man for months. Mr. Wells, when did you discover that your wife might be pregnant? About 3 weeks after I got home. She told me on New Year's Eve. We were at her parents' house for a party, and she pulled me aside into the kitchen. She said she'd taken a pregnancy test that morning and it was positive. What was your reaction? Honestly, Your Honor, I was excited at first. Stupid, right? But I thought maybe a new baby would help us heal, would give us something positive to focus on. We already had Tyler and Sophia. I loved being a dad. The idea of another child seemed like a blessing. So what changed? I started doing the math. Vanessa said she was about 6 weeks along according to the test. I got home December 18th. If she was 6 weeks pregnant on New Year's Eve, that meant conception would have been around mid-November. I was still in Afghanistan in mid-November. Mr. Wells, did you come home on leave at any point in November? No, ma'am. My R&R was in September. After that, I didn't set foot on American soil until December 18th when we returned permanently. Mrs. Wells, if your husband wasn't in the country in November, how did you explain this pregnancy timeline to him? I told him the dates must be off, that maybe I was further along than the test indicated, or not as far along, that these things aren't always exact. But you knew the truth, didn't you? You knew there was a possibility that Derek was the father. Vanessa's eyes fill with tears, and she nods slowly. Yes, I knew it was possible. But I also knew Cameron and I had been together during his leave in September. So it could have been his too. Could have been. Could have been mine. We're talking about my son Vanessa. My boy who I've been raising for 2 years, reading bedtime stories to, teaching to throw a ball. And you're telling me there's a chance he might not even be mine? I was hoping he was yours. I was praying he was yours. When Jacob was born and I saw him, I thought he looked like you. I convinced myself it was true. But you never told me the truth. You never gave me the choice to know what I was dealing with. Because I knew you'd leave me. I knew our marriage would be over. Judge Morrison speaks gently but firmly. Mrs. Wells, did you continue your relationship with Derek after discovering you were pregnant? No, Your Honor. I ended things with him before I told Cameron about the pregnancy. I told Derek we couldn't see each other anymore, that I was pregnant and trying to save my marriage. Did you tell Derek that he might be the father? Vanessa hesitates, then shakes her head. No, I didn't tell him that. So there's a man out there who might have a biological child he doesn't even know exists? I suppose so, yes. And Mr. Wells, when did you start to seriously doubt your paternity of Jacob? Honestly, Your Honor, it was little things that built up over time. Jacob didn't look like Tyler or Sophia when he was born. Tyler looked exactly like me as a baby. Same eye shape, same nose, even the same birthmark on his shoulder. Sophia has Vanessa's eyes and my mother's chin, but Jacob looked different. Still does. Cameron, babies don't always look like their siblings. That doesn't mean anything. There's more than just looks, Vanessa. It's the timing, the lies, the fact that you were sleeping with someone else during the window of conception. You've lied to me about so many things. How am I supposed to believe you about this? I've told you the truth now. I've admitted everything. What more do you want from me? I want to know if my son is actually my son. That's what I want. I want to know if the last 2 years of my life, the sleepless nights, the diaper changes, the first words, the first steps, if any of that is real or if it's all based on a lie. It's real, Cameron. Regardless of biology, you're Jacob's father. You're the one he calls Dada. You're the one he reaches for when he's scared. But what if I'm not his biological father, Vanessa? What if every time I look at him, I see your betrayal? How am I supposed to deal with that? Judge Morrison leans back in her chair, surveying both parties with a mixture of compassion and concern. This is precisely why we're here today. To get answers. To end the speculation and the doubt. But I need to ask you both something important. Mr. Wells, if the results today show that you are not Jacob's biological father, what do you plan to do? Cameron is quiet for a long moment, his eyes fixed on the floor. I don't know, Your Honor. I honestly don't know. Part of me loves that little boy so much it hurts. He's my buddy. We build blocks together. He laughs at my silly voices when I read him books. But another part of me is so angry at the possibility that I might have been tricked into raising another man's child. And Mrs. Wells, if the results show that your husband is not the father, what does that mean for your marriage? I think our marriage has been in trouble for a while now, Your Honor. The infidelity was wrong. I know that. I own that. But Cameron has been punishing me for 2 years. He brings it up in every argument. He throws it in my face constantly. He treats Jacob differently than he treats our other 2 children. Different how? He doesn't pick him up as much. Doesn't play with him as much. I see the way he hesitates before he touches Jacob. Like he's afraid to bond with him. Like he's protecting himself from getting hurt. And Jacob feels it. I know he does. Even at 2 years old, he can sense that his father is holding back. Maybe I am holding back. Maybe I'm trying to protect myself from loving a child who might not be mine. Is that so wrong? It's not the child's fault, Cameron. Jacob didn't ask for any of this. Neither did I, Vanessa. I didn't ask to be betrayed. I didn't ask to have my family torn apart while I was overseas serving my country. I didn't ask for any of this either. Judge Morrison holds up the envelope containing the DNA results. Both of you need to understand something before I read these results. No matter what this paper says, there's a 2-year-old child involved here. A child who needs love, stability, and parents who can put his needs first. These results will tell us about biology, but they won't tell us about love. They won't tell us about commitment. Those are choices you both have to make. She carefully opens the envelope, takes a moment to read the contents, then looks up at the couple before her. In the matter of Wells versus Wells, regarding the paternity of 2-year-old Jacob Michael Wells, this court has received DNA analysis from an accredited testing laboratory. The results indicate. She pauses, and the silence stretches out painfully. Mr. Cameron Wells, according to these DNA results, you are the biological father of Jacob Michael Wells. The probability of paternity is 99.9 to 8%. Cameron's knees seem to buckle slightly, and he grabs the table for support. Vanessa's hand flies to her mouth as tears stream down her face. Oh, thank God. Thank God. Cameron doesn't speak. He just stands there, breathing hard, processing the information. Mr. Wells, how do you feel? He looks up at the judge, his eyes red but dry. Relieved, angry, confused. I don't even know, Your Honor. I'm glad he's mine. Of course I'm glad. But I'm also furious that I've wasted 2 years doubting my own son. 2 years of holding back, of not fully loving him because I was afraid. She did that. She created that doubt with her lies and her cheating. Cameron, I never meant for any of this to happen. But it did happen, Vanessa. You made choices that affected our entire family. You broke trust that may never be fully repaired. Judge Morrison speaks quietly but firmly. Mr. Wells, your son is biologically yours. That doubt is gone now. But you have some serious decisions to make about your marriage and your family. Mrs. Wells, you have broken your husband's trust in the most fundamental way. Rebuilding that trust, if it's even possible, will take years of work, honesty, and counseling. I'm willing to do that work, Your Honor. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. The question is whether Mr. Wells is willing to do that work with you. Mr. Wells? Cameron looks at his wife, really looks at her. For the first time since entering the courtroom. I don't know if I can forgive this, Vanessa. I don't know if we can come back from what you did. But I know that I have 3 kids who need both of their parents. So I'm willing to try. Not for you. Not even for me. But for Tyler, Sophia, and Jacob. They deserve better than a broken home. Vanessa nods, tears streaming down her face. That's all I'm asking for. A chance to make this right. Judge Morrison closes the file and addresses them both one final time. I'm going to recommend intensive marriage counseling for both of you. You both need individual therapy as well. Mr. Wells, you've experienced trauma both in combat and in your personal life. You need support to process that. Mrs. Wells, you need to understand why you made the choices you made and how to make better choices going forward. And you both need to learn how to communicate, how to handle stress and separation, and how to rebuild trust. This won't be easy. In fact, it might be the hardest thing you ever do. But if you're committed to keeping this family together, you both have to do the work. Yes, Your Honor. Yes, Your Honor. And Mr. Wells, I want you to go home today and hold your son. All the doubt, all the fear about his paternity is gone now. He's yours. Let yourself love him without reservation. Cameron nods, finally allowing a tear to escape. I will, Your Honor. I promise I will. This court is adjourned. I wish you both the strength and wisdom to heal your family. As they leave the courtroom, Cameron and Vanessa don't hold hands or embrace, but they walk out side by side, a small step toward whatever future they might build together. The road ahead is uncertain, filled with pain and hard conversations and the difficult work of rebuilding what was broken. But for the first time in 2 years, they're walking that road with truth instead of lies. And perhaps, with time and effort, that truth might be enough to begin healing.